Hey, it's Jeff. Today we're going to be taking a look at how FujiKai27 got to 1200 in Rapid. So, a few days ago, he asked me for some advice, and I looked at like a couple of the games, and just knowing from the rating, I'd say just work on tactics pretty much. And I explained the difference between the ones that you calculate, like I recommend chess tempo for, or the tactical vision ones where you want to spot patterns quickly, and I'm not exactly sure which he did. He did say he went to Lead Chess to do tactics because those are free. But yeah, he was able to get from 1130 to over 1200 with like a big win streak, and then he messaged me saying that they really felt that like my advice was what helped him, which was basically just to do tactics. So we're gonna take a look at this win streak and analyze the games. And I haven't looked too deeply into a lot of these, so we'll try to see um, what's going on. Like, what does it look like when someone's going from 1100 to 1200? And I think it was the first time that they reached 1200. And since then, you see more losses, but been like, they haven't gone much below 1200 since they got there. So, making progress. But we're going to take a look at this initial win streak right here today. So, let's start with the first game. Okay. Um, I'm just gonna kind of click through. If I see something interesting, I'll point it out. Here already, I don't really like White's play because it's a gambit, and unless it's like the Queen's gambit, you're kind of just giving up material, and it's I don't know. I know some people they like gambits and stuff, but for me personally, I I don't really like it because I feel like when you play against someone that's prepared against a gambit, then you kind of start off with a disadvantage most of the time. There might be some other gambits that are like more playable than others, but overall, I just kind of avoid them entirely. And I'm not even sure if they played this intended to be a gambit. It could just be blundering the pawn, so you actually never know. Okay, but nothing really happened there. And c3, they go here. So yeah, I don't really like this for white so far. They probably are still doing better, just because there's a lot of development going on. Actually, this might even be a tactic. I don't know. But so I'm looking at bishop takes, king here, maybe knight here, check, and then picking up that. So you bring the king out and you win a pawn. So this actually might be pretty decent. Another thing that does seem interesting is queen b3 because it threatens this and threatens that. So it does seem like white's winning already. But a lot of times, like if this pawn was more protected, this would be kind of an annoying thing to deal with for white because you wouldn't be able to easily recapture this pawn. It cuts off some key squares. So, but for here, it looks like there's probably some tactics. Either sacrificing here or bringing the queen here is probably good. But they play h3, so that helps them. They give up the bishop here. Notice, in terms of like positional play, this bishop is having a hard time. Like it's not going to be able to develop on this diagonal. So at some point, you might bring b3 and then do this, or even b3 in some cases, go bishop a3. Especially like if this pawn is moved, then trying to get this bishop to a3 to trade it for that bishop would be really good because this is by far white's worst piece. So so yeah, that is a common theme sometimes to just try to go to a3 while the knight's still on b1 because it would just be able to recapture if black were to capture. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about in terms of positional stuff. But right now, white does have a threat right here, and they defend against it with that. Okay. I'm also looking at if at some point they bring the knight here. I'm kind of looking at this move to kick the knight and then try to take that. But I think they would go here, and then it's not like that clear. Also, this pawn, it can be recaptured at some point. So yeah, they do that. They move a pawn, c4. I guess it's like to eventually bring the knight out. A lot of the times, though, or maybe even, no, I don't really know. I was gonna say maybe it's to prevent that because they could just capture. But a lot of times when I'm in this situation, I would just castle because you just want to get your king safe as fast as possible, and then I would deal with some of the other things. But at this point, like, you can really do anything, and white's probably just winning. So they're already up a pawn, which in the case where you're up a pawn and you have a better position, better center control, that's even more reason why I would just castle, because you know you have to do it at some point. The queens are still on the board, so someone can attack and open things up. But it just takes away a lot of potential like counterplay. Like maybe not in this position, but in other positions. If you just have that always have that urgency to castle in a situation like this, then you will be okay. But they moved pawn, and now the queen is coming in. I would probably look into queen here just to try to trade queens. But they could also probably just develop the knight. Okay. Knight castle, some recaptures. The bishop is still guarded by the queen. Okay, and they move the queen back. They get this bishop here. It's still like it's not really doing anything, and now this pawn. You see, like this pawn structure was just not the best overall in terms of like this bishop's health. Like maybe the plan is now to do something like a4 and then bring the bishop here. Like this would be a good diagonal. It cuts off their king from castling, also attacks their queen. But right now, the bishop on b2, it doesn't do anything other than connect the rooks, so it's still probably decent. But if that were the case, that you want to eventually put the bishop on a3 after moving the a-pawn, then maybe a good move would have been a4 here, and then plan to develop the bishop this way. I feel like that would have put the bishop on a much more active square than just going here. Because even with this, I feel like the best plan is to eventually do this later. So this kind of just wastes the tempo if that was the case. But they go to g3, so they're attacking this pawn that's undefended, and they defend against it. Okay, f4, pawn break. I like it, because if they take, I'll probably take with the queen, just to always offer the queen trades since it's material, and if they're not careful, they might fall into some problems, because the queen and rook are in the same file, and this is only defended by the king. Okay, I would take. And at this point, I'm probably looking into a rook lift. And I would consider between rook f2 and rook f3. I'm looking at rook f3 just so that the rook is guarding the bishop, so the queen is free to move around if they want. And then eventually bring this one over. So it does seem like black's king is really safe. See, that they haven't castled, and now this whole file is cut off. If they try to go this way, it's still very unsafe for them because, well, the b file is semi-open, and they've moved pawns in front of that side, so this is a really terrible position for black to be in. But c5 appears to just hang a pawn. They can take with check, and so they already gave up the pawn that they won back. So that's kind of unfortunate. So I definitely don't like this move. And I'm not sure, like, in terms of blunder check, you always think, what do they do? Like, if you want to go c5, what check, captures, and threats do they have? Well, they have a check and a capture with that, and it just wins the pawn for nothing. So I'm really unsure what the point of that one was. But I would have just focused on rook lift, adding up pressure, maybe even bring the queen to f2 later. And then you have threats of this and stuff, rook to f8, if you have all three pieces on the f file. But this makes it more of an even game, almost. White's probably still better here. And even at some point, if they push this pawn, then this bishop is more active on this diagonal. Already it would be attacking this pawn twice, it's only defended once. And again, this rook could be a problem for them if that were to happen. So I move the king out the way, knight develops. Also it reinforces this pawn. Okay, they go queen here. I guess trying to go here. It doesn't really checkmate them or anything, but maybe this has some threats later on. Okay, they develop. And then they do go here, but now only have one thing attacking this pawn, so... But maybe it's still probably okay. But notice now that this bishop is more clear, this bishop is blocked in a lot more. So it's kind of hard for them to get all their stuff out. But they do have the bishop pair, and the opponent has no bishop, so if they can just get the position open, then this will favor them a lot more than it already is. But right now, Black's main thing that's keeping them alive is that they have knights in a somewhat close position. But yeah, they've done good to cut off the F file, so yeah, it would have been a lot better to just start with doubling the rooks. So, okay, now they go here, so definitely not going to castle that side. Offered a queen trade, but at this point, it's going to be even material, so I'm less excited about the idea of them trading queens. Although, with the bishop pair, it's probably still an okay advantage. Alright, and so this is defended by a knight. Attacked once. I'm looking at moving the rook here. I don't know if it makes sense. Okay, they go there. Moving some pawns, activating the king. It's the end game, so do you want to activate the king? Although it does look kind of scary because there are some mating nets that can happen, but right now it's probably okay. But this knight coming here, because defended by that, does look really annoying. You do get this G pawn. But yeah, sometimes I could easily see like a checkmate happening somehow, but in this one it's not likely. There is a fork here, which is slightly annoying. They could also just take the rook and then like materials even, and I don't know if they're eventually going to be picking up any pawns, but this could be like a good defensive try for black to try to draw at least. So I'm not sure if they would be able to win that position. But at this point, luckily rook f6 works because there's nothing that's going to drive the king away, or else like this king would be able to take the rook. So yeah, so now white's just up a lot of pawns, and it's the end game. Be kind of careful, but they're going for these pawns over there. Okay, yeah, so everything's falling. They have multiple pass pawns, and this is why bishops are really strong against knights. And when you have like multiple pass pawns, like the bishop is doing a good job here, it can easily get to this side of the board if needed, but the knight has to jump around a whole lot of things to even get here. You see, if this was a bishop, you just put it right there, and already they have a harder time. So that's why a lot of times you want to have a bishop more often than a knight, but there are positions where having a knight is going to be better, especially when all the pawns are on the same side of the board for the most part, like just locked in a chain. But okay, wait, this game still goes. Okay, they get a queen, but it's pretty much over, so there's not really anything. Because we know that they won, it's not stalemate. Okay, so that was the first game. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, this was a quick one. Ooh, F5, I don't like that. Moving a pawn in front of the king where you'd want a castle on this side most of the time. So unless this is a opening that was prepared, and even then, I've never seen this, so I don't really like it at all. Like it's really close to that situation where you do something like this, like that, where oops, not there, like this checkmate. Whenever I see like this early F5, I'm just thinking somehow this could easily happen. But in the actual game, it's actually nowhere close because oops, because this e pawn hasn't moved, so so they're kind of safe on that front. But it's still not like I don't like f5 at all. This is a rapid game, so like if it was bullet, it would be more understandable. Like you'd be trying to open stuff up, but in rapid, you can't really play this risky. Okay, but the opponent just took the pawn and just lost their bishop. So already tactics are going in their favor, and they want an extra pawn. They move e5. The threat is queen takes knight, and they just castle. So yeah, tactics. This is why all you need is tactics at this level. Even up to 1500, like you're gonna have multiple opportunities to win material from your opponent. And I would be looking into this and just trying to checkmate like that. Okay, so they do avoid the immediate stuff. Yeah, because if you go queen here, they have this, and it's not a quick checkmate. But they go there, which is much worse, because now, I guess this, they're in here, and somehow they're probably getting checkmated, or if nothing else, their king is just way in the center. Or even like this check, maybe. Oops. Okay, so they do the bishop check, do the knight check, and I guess they resigned. They did have this move, and like the game would still go, but I guess they just already knew they were giving up. And even if you didn't see the checkmate, you could always just take this and just have like lots of material. So yes, they got destroyed. They gave up the bishop for free, gave up pawns, gave up the knight, and then got their king out in the open. And this could have been really bad for black if white had developed normally and then taken advantage of them moving the f-pawn early. So they were saved by the opponent just playing way worse in this case. Okay, and that was this game. Okay. What is this thing? En passant. Oh, they have like a thing to explain to people what en passant is. Okay, this opening is already a little bit better for white than the previous game. Whenever I see this move, I always think about taking here. I don't know if it works in this situation, but if we just go like this, in this situation, I always would go here. If they take, give this check. If they go here, then you have this fork. Now, if they move the king, you also still have this, and now the king is just in the center. So this is also really good. So that's actually like one thing I'm always looking at. And it's another case of them moving the f-pawn in front of the king when you want to be castling this side and not move these pawns. Just like white wants to castle on this side and not move these pawns too much. So this is a typical like beginner move. Unless it's like you find some theoretical line where they're actually doing this early. But most of the time, people aren't really following theory and they're just trying to move stuff, get things developed. But this is like one of the ways that you can take advantage of an early like f-pawn push. But even if not, if it didn't work out, this is still like pretty weakening. So okay, so they moved the bishop there. That was like the next thing that did kind of make sense, just taking advantage of this diagonal, putting the bishop there. Okay, move the pawn. Again, I probably would have just castled since I just want to castle immediately. And they move the other bishop. You see, a lot of moves are going by with white not castling still, which isn't a problem. And a lot of these times, it's not a problem because they're not getting punished for it. But I think a lot of people find eventually, when you play a lot stronger opponents, you start to learn the importance of just castling if it's like easy to do. And there's multiple things you could do, but just castling is something you have to do at some point. And if you delay it too much, you might get distracted by a lot of other things that they're doing. But when you castle, then you're in a better position to just react to what they're doing. Okay, they do castle finally. Remove this pawn. Okay, en passant. Take. And I don't know what like the best play is for a lot of these things. I would probably play as white is doing here for the most part. But there could be probably something that could be proved, but whatever it is, like I don't know immediately what it is. So I just look at it and say this stuff looks pretty normal until I see like a tactical error, and it's something that like people should be focusing on. So like there, black just lost a pawn, and these bishops are a lot better than like that first game we looked at. So this bishop is excellently placed, and this one also has like some decent scope. You have to be kind of careful though, because if this bishop moves, then this is attacked twice, and the queen is the only thing defending it. So that is so even though white's up a pawn, they might actually end up giving the pawn back at some point. Okay, and then the knight is also trying to attack the pawn. But at this point, I'm trying to look at what things you can do to like really open up their position and attack them, because if you like do something like move the bishop to defend, you let them castle it pretty easily. So keeping this bishop here is pretty important, and maybe just rook here, and I don't know. The thing is, they are going to eventually take this pawn probably. Yeah, I don't really know. Actually, that's actually pretty good, because it does have the threat of just taking this. If they move this pawn, that kind of weakens their king even further. So okay, they actually moved the bishop back. So yeah, their king is just way out in the open now. Now I would play rook e1, like pretty much immediately, unless like queen e1 somehow is good because it brings the queen in. But I would probably just be looking at rook here, and I don't even know what they can do. I guess they could, I don't know, because if they go here, I'd just take with the rook. So yeah, so they actually do move with that. And now their king is in the center is just like GG for them, pretty much. Okay, and they accidentally cut off this file as well. I'm going to go to bishop c4, and then, okay, I actually didn't see that either. It's okay. Yeah, and they're just getting destroyed here. So tactics win again, pretty much. And they castled like early, so that was great. Alright, so here they're already at 11:56. I think we started looking at them when they were at 11:30. So, okay. Again, we see this common thing where people are moving their up pawn on the side that they're typically going to castle and just weakening this for no reason. Okay, this does look pretty bad for black though, like white has a good pawn center. That is kind of a problem. One typical move that you'll see is d5 has to be played at some point. Like if you don't play that, then like these pawns just become really annoying. Like there's no other way to really deal with it, because at least if you go here and they take, okay, you take, and their pawns in the center aren't as scary anymore. And actually, let's see, let's look at the engine and see what it wants to play. Yeah, see d5 only move, and black has the advantage. If they don't, then white is doing better. Like even technically, but like white is just having an easier game if you don't play d5. So even though this was like a unique position to me, like I played e5 against e4 for a little bit, and that was definitely a thing that you learn that you just have to do, and they know it too, so that's really good. That's what happened in the game, and I don't know if I would have moved the bishop away from this diagonal. Like you already have two attacking this, and they have two defending it. I think just moving the knight back just adds another attacker here. And I don't even see, they can't even add another defender, so they might just be losing the pawn if you go here. Because they can't push, they could try to run away, but then you can take and win a free pawn. So I probably would have looked into something like moving a knight and attacking that, but they just moved the bishop here attacking the queen, but the queen can just simply move away, and now your bishop is in a slightly worse position. Like it was definitely doing better on b6. But they actually gave up a pawn, so that's bad for them. Okay, some trades. Notice this pawn is hanging. Okay. Now they finally defend it, but pretty much no one really took advantage of that. Okay, so here there's two attackers, two defenders. You could remove a defender, or remove both defenders, actually. Because if they're going to retake, they have to take with the queen and then take. And I would probably take with the knight, just so we could eventually trade the knight for the bishop as well. I'm looking at, okay, I'll just put this on the board. So I was looking at this. And also, they could do something like this to try to pin the knight to the queen, but I would just take like that. And if they move the queen anywhere, well, I guess you do have to be careful. I was gonna say, okay, you can move this and then do this trade. But actually after this, there's like queen here or maybe queen there, and now the knight's pinned, so that would be kind of annoying. And then they're gonna be trying to move the rook next. So this might not actually work out. It would probably be something that I would have considered. So let's see, where was the actual game though? Okay, they did take, and they gave that check. Okay, I moved the king out the way. They didn't take the bishop. They're supposed to recapture here, but now it just gave you more material. I would definitely go here to force a trade of bishops, even though it gives a pawn back. Would I? I don't know. I think I would. Okay, I have to be kind of careful because they can pin you still. And then what are you doing? How do you get out of this pin? Oops. I lost the game. Okay, do go here. Okay, so yeah, you would just lose a bishop though. Okay, but they did wrong. They lost their queen. They're supposed to go here first, and then they win the bishop, and they're doing better. Well, no, black's still winning, but they're definitely getting some material back. But instead, they took the bishop first and hung their queen, and so that's why black won. So yeah, nothing they could do after that. But that was not the best play though, like to allow them to get that. Okay, let's try to find where we were. I've actually lost it. Okay, that was the last one we looked at. And okay, this might be the last one we look at, but pretty much they just had like a really good win streak. And okay, it is weird. They switch up the openings a lot. Like I'm really a big fan of just like picking one thing and getting really good at that before switching things up. It just seems like you're just playing like random moves from the start, whereas it would help if you select like an opening, like maybe just if you did e4 for instance, just always playing the same line, and then whenever someone plays the same thing, you can look up what you might do differently and just get really used to like a certain set of positions instead of playing everything but not really knowing much about what's going on. Okay, so they play into some gambit. A lot of times I think the knight goes to d2 here. I don't know exactly why, but and maybe it's like, okay, they go c3 and that prevents the knight like that. But there's definitely like stuff like this, and then I don't know if the bishop goes here if you do g3. But I think I would, if I was just playing a game now, I'd probably just castle something like that and play. Okay, so this was a tactical mistake, lose the pawn. And where's pawn structure? Materials even. So I guess the pawn that white just lost, that was like the pawn that they gained from black playing a gambit. Again, and that's why I don't really like gambits, because even when you win a pawn back, well, now you're just back to even. So unless they just were completely unaware of the gambit. And here they have like, it's another case of if they can't castle, you're taking advantage of pins and stuff in the open, like that's really good. Because you can even just probably take on here. Like the knight coming here is also adding pressure there. It also has a threat of working. This knight is pinned, so black is just getting destroyed on every front pretty much. So white has like perfect piece placement right now. Okay, that ends up happening. Oh, and then they just give up the knight. So yeah, definitely tactics. And then bishop takes d6. Bishop takes. Here, just take with the rook and it's checkmate. But they resign after that anyway. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. Yeah, this person, they ended up taking my advice, working on tactics, and they went on a really good win streak and got to 1200. And they've been over 1200 since for the most part. They did fall under a little bit, but then they got back up. So yeah, I've been doing pretty good. And I definitely think like even up to 1500, like just improving tactics will work. And I feel like this is the beginning of them actually studying tactics. So that just means they can make a lot more improvements if they keep working on it. So yeah, anyway, hope you enjoyed and see you in the next one.